So I advocate for trying to think, how can I infuse boredom back into my life? And really for me, that's, go out, take a walk for 20 minutes, see what happens to your thoughts, be willing to sort of sit with that and see where it leads you beyond a screen.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about what you just said with respect to boredom from our first discussion, and I've tried to be more cognizant of it, and in particular, like how uncomfortable I am when I'm bored. There aren't that many times I get to be bored, but this idea that just going places without your phone, which I think is a good practice, right? Like I'm going to go somewhere today and I'm not going to take my phone because I can actually live without it. I used to do this. There was a day when I did this before.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself in the line at the store without a phone.
And it's odd at first.
It's really weird. It's like, it's 5 minutes where there's nothing to do.
Yeah, but I also think that you can train yourself to realize that it's an opportunity.
Oh yeah. It's a beautiful opportunity to just observe your thoughts, to observe some element of the surrounding. It's actually why, and you and I've talked about this, it's why I love rucking, right? It's a no phone zone that is great. But I think there's something different about rucking in that it's so physically challenging, or you can make it so physically challenging that the lack of music or stimulation is okay. But there's something about stillness and otherwise boredom that I think can be challenging. And to think that if we didn't have that drive, our species might not have survived.
Right.
That's a very cool thought to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I do think too, you asked me, did you sort of adapt to the chamane food? I do think you can adapt to boredom. So, for example, in the comfort crisis, I spent all this time in the Arctic. And I will say that the boredom was most intense early on in the trip. After you've sort of removed yourself from the incoming emails, the screens, the million things that you're normally doing, things start to slow down and you start to calm down and you start to become more observant. And I mean, I will tell you, probably the most mentally well I've ever been in my life was after a couple of weeks up in the Arctic, because you're just dialed in. You just feel so much calmer. And I do think that we live in a world now of hyperspeed. Anytime we want to be stimulated, we can do that. And by the way, it's going to be TikTok, right? It's like coming at you fast. So I do think that there's a case for finding time in your life for removal from all that, to sort of lean back into boredom. And one of the things, I guess, issues I've had with a lot of the messaging around how people need to use their cell phone less is that, like, yes, that is important. But what tends to happen is when people take an hour off their phone screen time, they go, okay, well, I'm bored. What do I do now? And they turn on Netflix and there's no difference, right? So I advocate for trying to think, how can I infuse boredom back into my life? And really for me, that's, go out, take a walk for 20 minutes, see what happens to your thoughts, be willing to sort of sit with that and see where it leads you beyond a screen, because on the screen is what everyone else is getting. And so I think this is particularly great for ideation. I think this is one of the reasons why people have their best ideas in the shower, is because you're not focused on anything. You're just kind of letting your mind wander, do its thing, and then bam, that's the angle, whatever it is. That's the idea.